Welcome to Sammy's Treasures, Revealing the Jewels of Autism. This is episode 6, The Tir-Wave Nature of Consent and Consensus. Before we actually get started, I'd like to point you to an attunement meditation we did on 12/21/2019 that can be found on our YouTube channel. It's an attunement to this symbol called Praisana that I received on July 21st, 2012. The meaning of the symbol Praisana means the Holy One sings within you and is intended to assist us as we make these transitions, and that it enables us to stay in the flow with the changes. So check that out. Also, if you haven't already done so, you might want to check out some of our blogs, especially the latest blog, or maybe 2 blogs ago, I think, called 2020 and the Golden Ascension Path. A very powerful message that I received from Sammy and some images that accompany it. Also, make note that our Facebook name has changed. It used to be the name of our website, MoonOros.One, but we've changed it to Revealing the Jewels of Autism, since that seems to be the more accurate mission that we are currently doing. Also, this podcast was meant to be published in December. Had the information early in December, but with all the distractions taking place, meaning like Sammy and all the releases that she goes through, and the changes and what she's receiving, and then how I facilitate her to release the information that she's releasing. So our primary way of doing it is through our drawings and symbols. And, I do also do some toning and light language for her if she's having a challenging time. But I want to note that this is confirmed by another autist. This comes from a book written by Dr. Andrea Labuti and João Carlos, which came out last summer, called Autism, A New Perspective. And João writes with some assistance from his mom. They use a form of facilitated communication, but it's quite remarkable what João writes with just a light touch from his mom's hand. And so he describes a similar process, well, not similar in the sense of what we do, but how challenging it can become when they're receiving so much information from dimensional spaces and masters. And he describes it in one section of their book that the information can become so much, and it's in his body. And for him, if he is not able to release it, one of the things that manifests for him is seizures. And so Sammy has what we would see as meltdowns, or very, very, a lot of difficulty in a coordinated movement, even more so than usual. So this is what it can look like. And Sammy's meltdowns can be so severe as to cause her to bang her head on walls or people, and it can be quite challenging, but it points to the nature of their sensitivity. So I just wanted to share that, because I know there's other parents listening, or professionals that are also listening you might be aides in classrooms, or teachers, or therapists yourself. So just putting that awareness out there for all of you, and then also in support for the parents and primary caregivers that support these very high vibrational beings. So getting on to today's message, I'll start with our intentions, and they added a new intention, the kids did. And one of their main intentions is that the messages will align each person to their unique soul matrix and assist in internalizing your soul consciousness to live as an omniversal law of one being. That the messages and transmissions will assist in shifting to the new platform, which is soul-based. And if you've listened to some of our other material, we've been saying that the human avatar soul matrix is based on a tri-wave or a trinity wave, and that is the balance of polarity. And so we're transitioning from the bi-wave system where we've been existing in extreme polarity, and now shifting to a tri-wave basis. And so this tri-wave is in alignment with our soul matrix, and so our physical bodies and all our structures and platforms are also going to be, or is in the process of being, transitioned to that tri-wave basis. And this series of podcasts from the Autist is to assist in shifting our way of perceiving ourselves, which affects how we manifest in this world. The other intentions are that the audience will hear and feel the message transmissions with clarity and focus. Listeners will listen with their hearts, experience non-judgment, experience states of non-duality, experience the pure tones of love which comes from the 0-point field. Today's message is brought to you by one of our autists. Her name is Lucy. She is a preteen and beyond verbal autist. She is using some rapid prompting method as well. So this is a very deep message, and it's a topic that can be looked at from many different angles, and we can go much, much deeper with this topic and probably just skims the surface. However, it's a place to begin to look at the depth of what we mean by consent and consensus at an energetic level, and what we're consenting to. So as a soul being expressing through this physical body, everything is going to be about energy. And I think those of you listening and the other blogs that you may read or other spiritual leaders that you might be following on social media and other podcasts and their blogs, we've been talking about this probably for a long time now, and obviously some people have had that inner understanding for probably all their lives, that we're energy, we're made up of energy, and so you can't not be an energy worker, because literally what makes you up and holds you together is the dynamics of energies, frequencies, vibrations coming together to collapse into this physical body and express a soul nature. So there's two meanings of what we might call consensus and consent. And obviously those two words have slightly different meanings, but we're going to be talking about them kind of simultaneously, and some variations about what each of those mean. So consent, we usually think about when we give permission, consent to some other person, entity, structure, let's say, or institution that we're giving them permission to enter our field, so to speak, or do something to us or for us, and so that we can receive some benefit from it. That it will, the implication there is that it will somehow is to assist us at all, at various different levels. Consensus, when we think of consensus, is you usually think of a group of a body or a group of people coming to a consensus, a general agreement on behalf of other people or groups of other people. Or if you're working in a business setting, you come to a consensus or an agreement to execute a certain action or execute certain policies, that type of thing. And now the word consent and consensus is being used a lot these days. And I don't know about you, but it makes me cringe inside when I felt that Lucy wanted to talk about consent and consensus. I mean, part of me inside was like, oh my goodness, how in the world do we even talk about this topic? Because it just makes me cringe. There's so many things that we agree to, whether you're using an app or, seeking out legal advice from an attorney. I mean, there's these contracts, which is sort of like a consent agreement, or when we're going to use software or platforms, that we're using, like Zoom for our meetings, or we use social media platforms like Facebook, or you want to post something, on YouTube, and then there's an agreement. We're giving consent, for something. And in that, I cringe, and I'm guessing a lot of you cringe too, because oftentimes we don't even really fully understand what the 5 to 10 pages of consent means. There's so much nuance and technical jargon that is in it at times that it's hard to even understand what we're completely, consenting to. And so, sometimes when I kind of glance through what the terms of agreement are, I'll say, no, I'm not going to agree to that, because it's obvious that then they're going to take your name and distribute it to or sell it to everybody in the world, So sometimes, it might weigh the pros and cons of how much do I need that particular software or app. We're using Podbean at this time to share our podcasts. And my husband did, a search on different platforms and things. But, even my husband, who has a PhD and I have a master's degree, there are times when, you look at something and you go, I have no idea what some of this means, but you agree to it because it's something that you want to use, or it will assist you in fulfilling your soul mission here. For us, these podcasts or our website, Zoom meetings, those are all different platforms, which is assisting us to get our message out. And obviously, being web-based, it makes it easier with the way our lifestyle is, and the need to care for our kids. And so, you sort of weigh the pros and cons, but there's a part of you that goes, oh, I don't know what I'm fully, agreeing to, especially these days with Facebook and all that. is being revealed at various times, or you find out that someone has infiltrated, even a government system where now they've stolen identities or information, personal information that was supposed to be very private and protected. So somebody out there has, hacked a firewall and they've managed to get themselves through. So it's a difficult concept, this idea of consent and consensus. So Lucy wants to start talking about this from the energetic perspective. So again, pointing to the concept and now knowing that we are soul energetic beings and that we can and will master our total energy field. And that's something, that can whole nother topic on its own. But in order to talk about energy and manifestation, we have to talk a little bit about sacred geometry and matrices in order to kind of become more aware of what we're actually doing and these energy chords that we're creating when we consent or are drawing a consensus. And so I've talked a little bit about sacred geometry, and I know that can sound like a complex topic, and others of you listening are probably know a lot about sacred geometry. So I'm just going to describe it in sort of a simple overview, and this is my simplified understanding of it as well. It's just the general overview of what sacred geometry is. So thinking about our soul matrix as the basis as a tri-wave, we see that triangle a lot, or three spheres that are interlocked. And when we can join the lines from the center of those spheres, we would get a triangle. And so one of the kids described that we can look at this as sort of the basis of the soul matrix. That triangle is the first geometry that then gives us a geometry, really, because really if you only had 2 points, it would you can only draw a straight line. And so from that triangle, you can imagine that creation can explode, and the avatar soul matrix is based on this trinity wave or tri-wave. And so we can then imagine that this has an energetic flow to it. It's energetic before we see the manifestation. And so all manifestations, what we consider manifestations in this realm, as the very what we would consider real solid objects here, like the chair that I'm sitting on, or the bed that you sleep on, flowers and plants and trees are physical bodies. This is what we mean when we say it's a manifestation, right? It's a manifestation in this form, in this reality. But before the actual manifestation is energy that is following an instruction set, so to speak, before it collapses into that form or is held in that energetic state. That there is an instruction set which is geometric. It has a geometry, and so It's and then when it manifests, it's kind of fractalizing and creating these fractal patterns, or just think of it as like mandalas, or basically mandalas, I guess, is one way, of looking at it, or ones with sharp edges and things. These are geometries, and there's an energetic matrices that are sort of the platform. And some of you, if you've heard of the Platonic solids, the 5 Platonic solids that makes up this reality, then that kind of gives you an idea of what we're talking about here. And so everything has an energy matrix. There's a pattern to it. And so even when we are setting intentions, we are naturally creating matrices, or a pattern of energy before the manifestation. And so you can imagine that when we are even in consent, that we are creating an energetic pattern or chords, right, that connects us to that other person or entity, to perform a certain action for hopefully what we usually consider to be our benefit, right? And so there's this natural way that we're already doing that. So when we make agreements or give permission, because in a way consent is giving permission, we assume that we know the energetic signature of what the other party is bringing to the table. And this is why we have like written agreements or contracts and things, because there have been, misunderstandings, or sometimes people are not as forthright with all the information that you might need. And again, even when we think we know, and we have all these complex agreements that are written out in 10 pages, sometimes even that is not really clear. So there can be hidden agendas or intentions from the other party that we're not aware of. So in talking about consent, we're also talking about intentions. When we go into an agreement, we have an intention of what we want to receive, and the other party has an intention of what they're going to give you or do, right, for a particular kind of outcome. And so there are people, who are masterful at setting intentions. And this is something I think like The Secret had brought out, that you can engage the quantum realm with our thoughts and manifest what we want, and manifest, and they're great manifestors in the physical world, and set out to do certain things and have set goals and intentions for their life, and they do it and they accomplish it. And there is a level of mastery over, our thoughts that's required in order to do that. But sort of the bigger picture message of what Lucy is saying here is that, yes, we can set clear intentions for ourselves and manifest, but because we have been operating in this bi-wave system, we're going to manifest within a certain bandwidth, right? We're going to manifest within like a certain box, let's say. And, we can see that, you can set intentions and manifest some wonderful and beautiful things in your life. And there's no knocking, having the physical comforts and safety in order to support our lives. But, we also look around at the world and see that there's still great suffering taking place. And so if we continue in the same system of setting our intentions, for ourselves, we're only going to get so far as a planet, as a collective humanity consciousness. That's the collective consciousness of humanity. It's, like I have an iPhone, and I could say, wow, this is great that I have an iPhone. But I know there's been stories, right, how the iPhones are made, and there's still people overseas who are being misused in order to produce these things, because we also want it for like a low cost, right? To keep costs down, those kinds of things. And so in this bi-wave system, part of the population is experiencing wonderful things, but the other population, because it's in extreme polarity, is still experiencing great suffering. And so in order to get, as a collective, to move beyond what we've known in polarity, it's important that we really start to look at these energetic chords, to look at what it means to really bring that tri-wave platform into our reality, to build from that tri-wave. And so even looking at consent and consensus from a tri-wave perspective really requires another level of awareness. From the cosmic law perspective, law of consensus, in the cosmic realm, which is in alignment with the law of one, essentially says that at the core of creation as soul beings, there are energetic signatures of each soul and a matrix or fractal pattern that coherently defines that energetic signature of that being. And so engaging with that being, one honors and respects that energetic integrity of that being. So when a being gives permission, or being is entrusted to do something to or for that individual, it will not harm that other being. Now, I think all of us here, those of you listening and here at home, for us, we intend not to do any harm, right, to another being, or even really to the planet. We don't intend to do harm, and yet in this extreme polarized system, we do seem to have these unintended consequences, sometimes unintentionally, but for other people, unfortunately, who are operate with hidden agendas, they are intending to do harm, or they're intending greater benefit for themselves without compassion for what it's doing to that other person or other being. And it's a difficult dilemma, I think, that we all face. And so those of us here on this soul mission to assist in this ascension, we're dealing with a lot of this ourselves, because there are certain things that we do that is perhaps still harming the planet, or systems that we engage with, which are not always, the best systems. Like sending our kids to public schools or in special day classes because you may not be able to really afford anything else at this time. And so this is not, I'm not saying this to put anybody in guilt or add guilt or to make anyone feel bad or guilty, because this is the way it is right now. And in order for us to move beyond it, we have to be here and we have to do the best we can with what this current system on planet Earth offers. But it's, we know that it's in service to the greater mission, which is really to free humanity from this extreme polarized system. And so, just as examples, I, come across those things as well. Like I use Amazon a lot. And, on the one hand, I don't, there's been a lot of reports lately about how they treat their employees and how they've cut benefits from their employees and the hours that they're working under. So on the one hand, I'm grateful because the way our life is been the last, especially 2 or 3 years, and the amount of information, so to speak, and portals that have opened and all the new things happening. And, it's been very challenging for Sammy. And so, and it's unpredictable. I don't know when it's going to hit. And so, it's made it difficult to, at times, to even, get groceries or get the basic necessities. And so I've come to rely on Amazon quite a bit to make deliveries or, of simple things that we don't, that we're running low on. And it certainly saves time because driving out somewhere to pick up these things, then it takes up my time to do these kinds of things at home or support her. And so I'm grateful on the one hand, but that I don't agree with those kinds of policies that, and not just Amazon makes, but a lot of companies make. I know that in this area, and I'm guessing it goes on in other areas as well, one of the ways the school systems have cut their costs for special education especially, is to cut back on the hours of aides for teachers, and cut it back just so that they're not at that 30-hour-a-week mark, because at 30 hours, I don't know if that's a federal law, employment law, or if just California, but at 30 hours, employers have to offer benefits, like health benefits. And so the way they've gotten out of that is by cutting hours, again, like 5.5 hours, just so that they're under the 30-hour-a-week mark. And, I know that can put teachers in a bind because of the prep work that might be required before classes start and after students have left, or are supposed to leave. And so these are some of the ways that has dictated companies and government agencies to cut costs. And so these are some of the systems that we, again, are operating in. So even though I don't give my consent to what Amazon is doing, I'm still obviously engaging with them. And so to some degree, I'm consenting. And at the same time, I'm not consenting to certain aspects. And maybe just by being able to vocalize that will make a difference, And somebody else I know, a a friend here, she said she doesn't agree that these companies or people essentially try to make us complicit with their low consciousness decisions, so to speak. So it's a difficult one. So pay attention to what you're consenting to. And part of Lucy's message here is to be aware of both ends of what is happening. We don't have to fall into that sense of guilt and bring our energy field down because we're still engaging with these systems. Because again, it's just about impossible not to engage with something or institutions and people and things that don't have any hidden agendas at this point, because of just how our consciousness has been sort of covered over. There's been a lot that's been hidden, that darker aspect that's going on the planet. We want to all look for the light and look for the good and get out of feeling bad, but it's also important to be able to look at both and be able to, even in the physical body, acknowledge that it's there, be able to hold that polarity consciousness, because that's the only way that we're going to move past this. What Lucy also wants to point us to is that this darker aspect, the shadow, there's a very, very deep, deep shadow that humanity has been operating from, and that even darker things are going to be revealed, basically. And the level of satanic and Luciferian influence that's gone on the planet. And I don't say that to sound scary or to frighten people, but as distortions have continued, these dark entities from the multidimensional and from extraterrestrial realms, unfortunately, have played a big part here on the planet. And those aspects need to come to the surface as well. So if you want to talk about revelation coming up, it feels like these darker aspects are going to be coming up to our awareness, if it hasn't already, but more on that global scale. And part of what we're seeing happening, as Lucy is saying, is that these deep, deep shadows are surfacing. And so if you think you've been shocked already, it feels like be ready for even bigger shockers, because there are things like satanic rituals to molest children and harvest organs that's going on the planet. And again, it's easy to want to look towards the light, and there's a lot of light workers who are operating from that level where they're operating from their heart chakra and above, and some of their energy might feel amazing in that sense, but they're not digging deeper what's in that pelvic area, which can tell us what these shadow aspects are. It's our part of our feeling body, which is actually the physical body. All our sensory systems are designed to be the feeling body. And actually, this is what Sammy wants to talk about next month, is omniscience, being aware of all of it. And so the beginning of practicing that is is even in our consent agreements and consensus agreements, when you're working with other people in a room, perhaps even, that you're trying to come to a consensus with, looking at, and asking yourself, is there a hidden agenda for me here? It's been part of our pattern, our mental body patterning, and how we have been operating is, what's my other intentions in it, and not to say even that ego is bad, so if you're feeling like it's for your own ego identity to maybe look superior, that might not be the healthiest thing. But even this shadow aspect whispering to you that you're just operating from your ego now, even putting that aside, that script of trying to make yourself superior or even inferior is not the balanced nature of who you are as a soul being either. But anyway, that's kind of a bit of an aside there. So these deeper shadow aspects, so even when we're coming into a consent agreement or a consensus, is to, weigh the pros and cons, especially when you're consenting to something like, the obvious examples right now for me are these platforms that we use and agreements that we have, with a Zoom or Podbean, things like that. Is what is my intention? What do I want or need from this, so to speak, to fulfill my soul mission? And what is the intention behind this platform? And to, if you can, is pull forward your soul consciousness. Say, I bring forth my soul consciousness, the soul nature of who I am, and in this balanced state, these are my intentions of what I want to do, and I want to see the intentions of this other person or this other entity and what it is that they're offering. And I'm just going to use my energy field and scan what is going on here, and if it's right for me. And if there's anything that I see in there, I may still decide that I'm going to agree to this, but that I see these hidden aspects, the hidden agendas of what it's trying to do, and I do not agree with those aspects. So by looking, by seeing, as the clairvoyant beings that we are as soul, even if you can't name it with words, to say, I see you. I see what's hidden. I see what's hidden there. And, I dismantle and clear that aspect in this moment. Now, how that's going to work out, I don't know, but that's a suggestion that's coming up. The other suggestion is to look at the attached image with this podcast. It's the Tir-Wave infinity symbol, which came to my awareness a couple of years ago, and you'll see sort of the flow. So when we think of exchanging, we think of the two-way street, right? The giver and the receiver. And so that's kind of, let's say, bi-wave, right? That I will maybe energetically, financially exchange with someone for a treatment or something, or for the doctor's office or something. And so we're making this agreement in this a two-way stream. But in a Tir-Wave flow, that third principle is what Lucy showed me is perhaps abundance and flourishing. So meaning that we're offering this exchange so that each party receives a level of abundance. So maybe that's the monetary exchange, right? And what you're offering them is going to add to their abundance, maybe abundant health, abundant, clarity with what their soul mission is, and that each party will flourish by this exchange. Because truly we don't. The intention is not to just keep taking, or even that feeling of entitlement is a bi-wave system. It's part of a bi-wave consciousness. That in the flow, where things are moving in balance, that we honor the other being for who they are and what they have to offer, and that we're going to make a truly honest exchange for that service or that good, right? And so, even when you think of things like I'm not going to use, you hear people saying that I don't want to use that platform because I'm not going to pay for it when I can do it myself, and yet it takes them longer to do perhaps X, Y, and Z, right? Or like we use, PayPal to do our financial exchanges through our website, because it's just it's quote easier. It's a third party, and they take a percentage, but I understand that they need to take a percentage because they need to be able to maintain their platform, and they need to be able to keep up with firewalls. I'm expecting that they're keeping up with their firewalls so that their systems don't get hacked. And so this is the exchange that we're making, and it's not to bring anybody else down in this exchange, and that we honor what this kind of tri-wave exchange is really honoring that other soul, that other being, for what they are here to do as well. So I felt like it sounds so simple, but when Lucy showed me that put abundance and flourish on that top end of that triangle, I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. So if that resonates for you, I hope you'll consider using that image, and we'll post it, a bigger image. I don't actually know if you can download that image from the Podbean platform, but we'll put it on our Facebook page, which is again now Revealing the Jewels of Autism, and also on our website somewhere. I know we're in the process of revamping our website, the front page, so it's a little bit easier to navigate. There's a lot of stuff, and there's more coming in all the time, and there's hundreds of images there's a lot of images that I've drawn, and even in the last 6 months, and symbols that I can't keep up with sharing and posting. But anyway, it's part of our intention to do that, and to continue to expand our work here. So that feels like this message is complete, and we trust that 2020 is starting out to be an awakening time for you, and perhaps it's not always easy, but there is a great deal of support that's coming in, and please know that you are loved, and that we have a great deal of support. So, in service to the One, in service to the law of One, I consecrate this message and fill it with many blessings for all of you listening and all your family. And we close this sacred space. And please join us next time when the message will be from Sammy on omniscience.